Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control.
Did you address
those days are over.
Did
the
you
days
tell her
of
to do
woke.
that?
The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
President Trump going off on New Jersey Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver after she was charged with assaulting 2 officers over that now infamous ICE clash at the Newark facility. Now, Congresswoman McIver is adamant that she did nothing wrong and says ICE is at fault for her allegedly assaulting them.
The entire situation was escalated by ICE. They caused the confrontation. Homeland came and, caused this chaos that we see. It was a very tense situation, but it could have been, easily it could have easily not happened. They had every opportunity to not allow this to happen. It was very unnecessary, and it just, once again, we were there to do our jobs. And if I'm going to be charged with a crime for doing my job, it just speaks to where we're headed in this country. It's political intimidation, and I'm looking forward to my day in court.
All eyes are now on Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who said that the arrest of any Democratic lawmakers would be his red line. Eric Swalwell now promising that there will be more confrontations with ICE. Watch.
It's complete political theater, and I promise you there's going to be more unnoticed visits to my colleagues where they show up, and they better be let in.
You said that this was a red line. What happens now that it's been crossed?
I addressed that in the statement.
This is a baseless, politically motivated distraction.
This is typical of the Justice Department trying to intimidate anybody who might oppose them, whether they be an elected official, a judge, or anybody else.
So, Kennedy, this facility in New Jersey has been used since 2000 for different detainees, federal detainees who were also in here. It was then closed for a few years, and then it was reopened. I don't remember any of these people showing up to protest the detainment of people or to talk about whether or not it was a safe facility under the Biden administration or under previous administrations. So what is it they're so incensed about now?
They have gotten addicted to protests. They have gotten addicted to drama. We all know that discussions like this that are so incredibly heated require adults who are going to employ some moderation, but LaMonica McIver knows that her name is not going to be mentioned anywhere if she sits down and has a conversation with Kristi Noem or Tom Homan in her office. And, if you look at this and the body cam footage, and there was a lot of video evidence here, it's very inconvenient for her because she is clearly not de-escalating the situation. And for these federal officers who have been trained to de-escalate, they've also been trained to read body language, and they know the intent of someone when they raise their forearm and elbows. All you have to do is listen to Ludacris' Southern Hospitality to know that when someone does this, they're about to drop bows on them. And that's a scary place to be if you're a federal officer, because you don't want to have to respond with force. But they have to move the conversation to this most dramatic point in order to get the one thing they crave so much, which actually fuels them. It's as though they've got solar panels on themselves. They need attention. They need chaos. They need drama. And none of that is helpful. None of that moves the conversation forward politically. And if they're really doing what they're supposed to be doing, then write laws in Congress, create a coalition, and pass them if ICE needs to be reformed.
Yeah, they showed up, Jessica, for several days. Mayor Baraka showed up for several days. He's running for governor. It does appear that they wanted exactly the attention that they ended up getting. He was arrested. He was not charged. She was charged. What outcome are they actually trying to produce here? It's unclear.
Well, they're trying to, at least in the case of the Congress people, and there were 3 of them that went down there, they're trying to exercise their right to conduct oversight. And they're arguing that they were being prevented.
They got in.
Eventually, but there's no question. The scuffle outside appears to be quite messy on both sides of it. And I'm not saying that Congresswoman McIver is not really pushing her way in. And there are eyewitnesses there who say that it was ICE agents who initiated the physical contact. They had seen the mayor of Newark being taken away, and Alina Habba, the interim U.S. Attorney for New Jersey, has now dropped the charges against him in the hopes of being able to move forward. And I think that's the way that the government is indicating that they know that they have been overplaying their hand on this, and that public opinion is shifting against ICE and what the DHS is doing here. So we will see what happens with Congresswoman McIver, but I know that she was trying to get in there to see what's actually going on at this point. And you say, well, they weren't doing this under the Biden administration. There weren't people with green cards being picked up off the street and held in detention facilities under the Biden administration.
Well,
we weren't
these people
sending
have
people
deportation
to
orders to detain most of them. A lot of them are
most
gang
of them, but
members.
that's the thing we are finding out. But that's the thing, on an almost daily basis, we are finding out that there are people who are being detained unlawfully, that they should not be in there, that they are innocent. If they came here illegally, that they actually went through the asylum system, that they were due their day in court, and now they're in a detention facility here, or they've been sent to El Salvador. And you can understand why people are skeptical of this, and why people are honestly pushing back on certainly this aspect of Donald Trump's immigration policy. And you hear Kristi Noem today in front of the Senate, who can't define what habeas corpus is being pushed and pushed and pushed about what they're doing, and the American public is not standing for it.
I want to bring in now Republican Congresswoman Kat Cammack of Florida, member of the House Energy and Commerce and Agriculture Committees. This must be in concert with the vibe that you felt on Capitol Hill today. Take me inside that meeting. You were there.
Well, it's good to see you, Harris. And yes, it was a great meeting. The president was in excellent spirits. He was funny. He was candid. He was raw, authentic. I mean, it was incredible. And I wish that the American people had a moment to really see him in that moment, talking really about the importance of moving this package across the finish line. You know, I couldn't help but think about, Mick Jagger and, infamously the Rolling Stones, you can't always get what you want. Everyone in that room has something that they are making a demand of, which that is part of the messy process of legislating. But at the end of the day, we have to get a package put together that was promised to the American people for the good of the country, and that is exactly what we are doing. Now, certainly there are some loose ends that have to be tied up. There are some final things that need to be negotiated. But overall, I think people are recognizing the gravity of the moment, and we're striking to meet the moment.
Look, we have a banner up right now from President Trump's one of 4 pop-up news conferences in the last hour and a half that he had on Capitol Hill. The U.S. will pay lowest drug prices in the world. Look, that's a big part of this. And I do want to hit a couple of the sticking points with you this morning. Let New York Republican Congressman Mike Lawler make his own stance known, as he did right after that meeting. Watch.
I made very clear when I ran for office back in 22 that I would never support a tax bill that does not adequately lift the cap on salt. As it stands right now, I do not support the bill. But the president understands, obviously, how important these issues are. Obviously, it's imperative that we get a deal done and get a bill passed. And so I'm going to continue to negotiate in good faith.
A large majority of the country looks at that and says, wait, salt, isn't that something that only East Coast states, mostly Democrat-led states, would want? Can you talk about how you work that out with Lawler?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of delegations that have particular issues. And I could certainly say, hey, we're Florida. We have the 3rd largest state in the union, and we have some particular issues that we want worked out. But again, you have to operate as a federal legislator in the best interests of the country. And I'll be damned if we're going to have working class individuals subsidize blue state millionaires. We're just not going to do it. And so there's a time and place, I believe, where we're going to have that negotiation, as the president said in the meeting today. It's just not right now. And so we have other things that we have to make sure we're doing, which is getting people back on their feet from 4 years of Biden economics, which basically destroyed our economy. We need to be doing regulatory reform, which will put immediately $3,100 back in Americans' pockets. We are on track to include the REINS Act, the largest regulatory reform effort in American history, into this bill, which would not only drain the swamp, but it empower the people and put money back in their pockets. We're talking about locking in taxes. If you are not going to support this bill, you're raising taxes. We have to put the American people first. That is the America First agenda. We're this close. We can get it across the finish line. We have to stay focused.
The Freedom Caucus chair, Andy Harris, has said, Congressman Harris has said that you just need more time. And he's even saying, look, you're not close yet, but you just need more time. I'm wondering if you have that time. Yes or no?
I think we do. The artificial deadline of Memorial Day, that is something that everyone is willing to work through because we understand that this is significant. I know for myself and people that I have talked to in the delegation across the conference, people are willing to stay and get this right. We have to get it right. So the arbitrary deadline, in my mind, it is in fact arbitrary. We can move the needle, but we want to make sure that we're getting this done in the right way.
Okay.
And so to rush this through, I think ultimately damages the conference, but we are close. We do need a little bit more time, and we will get there.
I wonder if there's an appetite to work through the weekend. You don't have to answer that yet.
For me, yes.
Yeah.
For me, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes. The Justice Department has charged Democratic Congresswoman LaMonica McIver for allegedly assaulting a law enforcement agent. ICE. I mean, these lawmakers, and there were more than just this one that were being looked at. You know, the mayor of Newark, where this ICE detention center is, was arrested and charged with trespassing. This got really, 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 really chippy. What is your take on what's happening with her?
Listen, you lay hands on an officer, you are going to face the consequences. This is an F around, find out moment, and she is about to find out. You cannot pull the victim card and say that you were in the wrong when you were literally shoving and throwing hands. The evidence is very clear. There is no video that disproves that she was not somehow the victim and that she was the victim in this. I mean, she absolutely was the aggressor. And just because you wear this pin, it does not give you privileges to have a double set of standards of the law. You are charged with making sure that you are upholding the law, that you are a good steward, and she has violated her oath of office. So I think she has a lot of consequences headed her way, and I fully support DHS and DOJ pursuing them to the fullest extent.
Well, it's been reported that she will need to turn herself in today to face those charges. I do want to make it clear, while he was arrested and charged, the mayor of Newark has seen his charges since get dropped against him. But this is a new day, and we have a new Democratic lawmaker in the hot seat over this incident. Congresswoman Kamek, always great to have you, particularly on the breaking news today. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Harris. Have a good one.
New Jersey Democrat Congresswoman LaMonica McIver is facing federal charges after allegedly assaulting a police officer during a protest outside of Delaney Hall ICE Detention Center in Newark, New Jersey. She denies any wrongdoing and is now blaming the ICE agents for causing the clash.
The entire situation was escalated by ICE. They caused the confrontation. Homeland came and, caused this chaos that we see. It was a very tense situation, but it could have been, easily it could have easily not happened. They had every opportunity to not allow this to happen. It was very unnecessary, and it just, once again, we were there to do our jobs. And if I'm going to be charged with a crime for doing my job, it just speaks to where we're headed in this country.
Well, President Trump isn't buying it.
Oh, give me a break. Did you see her? She was out of control. Did you address those days are over. The days of woke. No, I didn't. The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
With me now, Texas Public Policy Foundation Executive Director Rob Henneke, who, by the way, made note that followed me at UT Law School by just a year or so.
Great to be reunited. Good to be with you, Will.
Fellow Longhorn. But the law point is not gratuitous, because that's where I want to go with this right now. Our own Chad Pergram has pointed out there's great protections for U.S. Congress members on speech and debate when it comes to facing criminal charges. The question is, and there are in that exact phrasing and that exact clause about speech and debate protections, though carve-outs for anyone who commits a felony or gets in the way of the law, implementing the law. And it would seem that the Congresswoman here, Congresswoman McIver, has fallen on the wrong side of the law.
Well, she has. Secretary Noem mentioned that there's consequences, and that's what we're talking about here. Nobody is above the law, especially members of Congress, who I would say need to be held to a higher standard. And what Congresswoman McIver did by trying to rush through the gates of an ICE facility, storming that facility, was clearly against the law, and she needs to be held accountable.
Hakeem Jeffries, House Minority Leader, has suggested this is a red line if she is arrested or if charges are pressed. I think he's left it somewhat vague. What does that mean for this to be a red line? What do you think he's talking about? What can be done in Congress?
I think this was clearly a political stunt by the Democrats that have backfired on them. You know, the ICE agents were merely doing their job. They're doing their job to protect that facility, and they're being demonized by the Democrats. You know, Governor Walz recently, horribly referred to them as members of the Gestapo. That's outrageous. You know, these ICE agents are doing their job. Congresswoman McIver put them in a dangerous situation with her actions. It broke the law, and she needs to be held accountable.
Speaking of outrageous, I want to share with you something that was said by the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson. He was talking about the hiring policies for the city.
There are some detractors that will push back on me and say, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. No, what I'm saying is when you hire our people, we always look out for everybody else. We are the most generous people on the planet. I don't know too many cultures that have play cousins. That's how generous we are. We just make somebody a family member, right? That's just how we are.
Rob, the news today is that the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, Harmeet Dillon, is going to open an investigation into the city of Chicago for civil rights violations. It's clear that's racist. If we replaced black with any other race and replaced generous with any other adjective, everyone sitting here watching today would be outraged. But is it also illegal?
It was. 50 years after the Civil Rights Act was enacted, we're still trying to get racism out of our government. And it's absolutely the purview of Harmeet Dillon with the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice to investigate the governor's statements there. You've got a history of racism with the Chicago mayor's office. Don't forget, 4 years ago, the prior mayor, Lori Lightfoot, said that she wouldn't allow white journalists to be interviewed by her office. So again, this is the mayor making a political statement about the practices of his office. Those are illegal. Those are absolutely the purview of the Department of Justice to investigate.
All right, Rob Henneke, thanks so much for making the drive up. We appreciate it.
Great to be with you.
From Austin to Dallas.
I think we've continued to see this as undermining Congress's ability to be able to conduct our oversight over ICE facilities, DHS facilities.
You cannot impede ICE agents. You can't assault ICE agents. You can't put hands on ICE agents. The actions that were taken that day totally escalated the situation, and it made it unsafe for everybody.
People in power will always find a strong black woman or man to target, to bully, to intimidate, to insult, to malign, and to harm.
So reaction is pouring in as a New Jersey congresswoman faces federal charges from that altercation outside an immigration enforcement facility in Newark. The Trump administration making it clear a new sheriff is in town. Welcome back as America Reports heads into Hour 2. I'm Sandra Smith in New York, and great to be with you, John.
And you as well, Sandra. I'm John Roberts in Washington. Congresswoman LaMonica McIver now facing charges of assaulting agents during that chaotic New Jersey ICE Center confrontation more than a week ago. McIver and her Democratic colleagues are blasting the prosecution as, quote, purely political.
But acting U.S. Attorney Alina Habba is making it very clear no one is above the law. President Trump reacting earlier to McIver's charges.
The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
All right, so Fox News contributor Jonathan Turley is here to weigh in.
But first, Alexis McAdams live in Newark, where it all went down. Alexis, is the Congresswoman going to turn herself in?
Hey, John. Well, I thought maybe that was going to happen today here in Newark, New Jersey. We've been in front of the courthouse for a few hours, and then we saw her do an interview on CNN from Washington, D.C., where she said, this is business as usual for me today. I've got a busy schedule going on Capitol Hill, so no sign of the Congresswoman yet. But the Democratic Congresswoman, LaMonica McIver, is facing serious felony charges and looking at jail time after she assaulted federal agents, according to ICE. But she says she didn't do anything wrong. Watch.
Representative, can we talk to you about the charges brought against you?
Look, it's political intimidation, and I'm looking forward to my day in court.
All right, well, when will that day be? We're waiting to find out. McIver is in this red shirt, though. She was shoving and elbowing federal agents, according to investigators. I went through the court documents. It says she grabbed an agent and tried to restrain him, then pushed another agent, striking him with her forearms. The video is one of many pieces of evidence that interim U.S. Attorney Alina Habba tells me led to several felony charges here. Like what? Well, assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement. McIver and 2 other Democratic Congress members from New Jersey are all in that crowd there. It was so chaotic just the other week. Robert Menendez Jr., Bonnie Watson Coleman were also there. They showed up at the ICE detention facility earlier this month and demanded a tour. DHS says that's not how it works. You got to make an appointment. So they just pushed their way past the gates, leading to chaos, according to the feds. Newark Mayor Ras Baraka was also arrested that day. Investigators say McIver blocked police from handcuffing the mayor, circling around him and yelling at investigators. His case has been dropped, but hers is alive and well. Back out here live, Democratic leaders and also LaMonica McIver saying that this is just politics, that it's the Republicans trying to intimidate their party. But they say you can't put hands on federal agents, else you're going to jail. So we'll see what happens, John.
Nope, seems to be zero tolerance policy in effect now. Alexis McAdams for us. Alexis, as always, thank you. Sandra?
All right, John, for more on this, let's bring in Fox News contributor and constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, always good to have you on the program. So please tell us what we should know about all of this.
Well, what these members are saying is legally absurd. It's not oversight to show up at a facility and try to force your way in. If that were as part of Article 1 authority, you could have 535 inspectors general running around the country just barging into federal offices. That's clearly not true. So what they're saying in the media today is not likely to be repeated in the courtroom. They can certainly say that they were there as part of their oversight function, but to actually force your way into a federal facility to break through a security line or go through a security gate is not part of any oversight authority that I know of. Now, you can go and you can subpoena agencies, you can even get a court order to get access to areas, but you're not allowed to just muscle your way in at the head of a mob.
Okay, so Rep. McIver appeared on another network earlier this morning, Jonathan, and placed the blame squarely on ICE for the escalation. Listen.
Entire situation was escalated by ICE. They caused the confrontation. The Justice Department and Alina Habba wanted me to admit to doing something that I did not do, and I was not going to do that. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to roll over and stop doing my job because they, don't want me to, or they want to neglect the fact that we needed to be in there to see what was going on in that detention center.
Your reaction to that, Jonathan?
Well, you're certainly allowed to go to a federal facility to see if there's something unlawful going on. You're just not allowed to go to that facility and commit something unlawful. And that's what this video shows. They were told they could not come in. They did not have prior approval. The gate was open to allow a car or truck to go through. And then they tried and succeeded in breaching that security gate. That's nothing in that is legal. Nothing in that is part of oversight. That is stepping beyond what you have authority to do. Now, she may have a great advantage here. Much like Judge Dugan in Wisconsin, this trial would be held in a fairly favorable district. A jury could very well engage in jury nullification and just vote on the cause and not the crime. But there is a cognizable crime here. Now, does that mean that she's looking at 8 years? No, this is still a relatively minor skirmish here. But to say that this was within the domain of Article 1 and congressional authority is facially ridiculous.
Yeah, I just want to get this in here. This was Tom Homan. He weighed in on all of it on Fox and Friends earlier today. Listen here.
I said from day one, you cross that line, we're going to ask for prosecution. You cannot, commit criminal trespass at our facilities and endanger our employees. And you certainly can't put hands on an ICE agent. So, she's going to have to pay the consequences for doing what she did.
And now we will let the justice system work, says Alina Habba. Her statement reads, I've persistently made efforts to address these issues without bringing criminal charges and have given Rep. McIver every opportunity to come to a resolution, but she has unfortunately declined. Real quick, I want to finish off with James Comey and that message in the sand. Here he is yesterday on that. Listen.
But I took it down. Even if I think it's crazy, I don't want to be associated with violence of any kind. Well, I regret the distraction and the controversy around it. But again, it's hard to have regret about something that, even in hindsight, looks to me to be totally innocent.
Hard to have regret, should he?
Well, this is timed just before the rollout of his new book, and I suppose that attention is not particularly unwelcome. But this is not the first shell message he's received, and it's a very odd thing that he's getting these political communications through shells, but it might be in time for an intervention. But I don't believe that this is a criminal case. It's just awfully embarrassing, and it's getting weirder by the moment.
I would agree with that. Thank you so much, Jonathan. Great to see you.
With that, we bring in Jonathan Fahey, former acting ICE director in the first Trump administration, former DHS deputy assistant secretary, and former federal prosecutor. Good to have you here today, sir. Thank you for joining us. Here's another piece of sound from Monica McIver talking about her take on what happened there. And I know you've seen the tape that we just showed about her confrontation with the agents. Here she is.
The entire situation was escalated by ICE. They caused the confrontation. Homeland came and, caused this chaos that we see. It was a very tense situation, but it could have been, easily it could have easily not happened. Once again, we were there to do our jobs.
So, Jonathan, as I said, welcome. Thanks for being here. When you watch this tape and you see the activity and you see the agents in this melee, what is your takeaway? How do you dissect it in terms of what happened and what the agents were doing?
Well, her first statement is this didn't have to happen and ICE instigated it. It's like, well, they're the ones that went to the facility and forced their way in, whether or not they thought they had a right to be there at all. But what's really troubling about this is a facility where you have these ICE agents, ICE officers, but plus you have very dangerous criminals there. So you could have put a lot of people, she did put a lot of people in danger just by creating this melee, because you never know what could also happen when prisoners see this. So she put everyone at risk because they wanted to make a political statement here, and she should be charged here. And this idea that it's politically motivated, that's not true. If this were to happen at the same facility with some random citizens that went in there and attacked agents, try to push their way in, they get the same exact charges. So President Trump and this administration are just simply trying to do their jobs by deporting illegal aliens, and the Democrats don't like this, but they have no right to assault agents, and it really puts them in risk, just more importantly, out in the public, because it really legitimizes resisting them and assaulting them to members of the public. So this is such disgraceful behavior, and she certainly deserves to be prosecuted.
Yeah, well, she is being prosecuted. As we said, the charges against the mayor were dropped. So when they assessed this whole situation, they decided that they did have a case to bring 2 charges against this member of Congress. When you talk about the larger picture and the attitude towards incarcerating some of these criminal migrants, and we know that the rap sheet is lengthy for a lot of the people who are being held at this facility, and I would venture to say they're helping to keep the other residents of Newark safe by putting some of these people off the streets. But here's Governor Tim Walz, who, still appears to have some political aspirations for the future. Here's what he's saying.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons. No chance to mount a defense, not even a chance to kiss a loved one goodbye, just grabbed up by masked agents, shoved into those vans, and disappeared.
Your reaction to that, sir?
That is so disgraceful that he did this. And the fact he did it at a commencement speech means he rehearsed comparing ICE agents to the Gestapo. And this really goes along the line of the Democratic Party these days with respect to ICE and law enforcement as a whole, of defaming them at all costs. We saw Senator Van Hollen accuse them of abduction. We had Kamala Harris way back when as a senator comparing ICE agents to the KKK. It is such appalling that an elected official would say this at a commencement, because this puts these agents in so much danger. And it's really important to know the assaults on ICE agents just this year have gone up. I think it's something like 413% just since the beginning of this year. And so this rhetoric puts them at greater danger, as well as the public in greater danger. And again, it's so unbelievable and so disgraceful that an elected official would do that.
Well, I always just sort of give it the test of the families of Jocelyn Ungary, Laken Riley, these families that these people have not spoken out impassionedly on behalf of, at why these individuals were allowed to cross the border and get into the country illegally in the first place. And that's getting sorted out here. A lot of them are opting to get on these planes and head out and get $1,000 after they arrive home, and then they can work on coming back in the proper way. Jonathan Fahey, thank you very much. Thanks for your commitment to all of these issues over the years, and it's always good to have you with us, sir.
Thank you.
What happens if they were to go and arrest these members, or if they would try to sanction them here in the House of Representatives?
They'll find out. It's a red line. It's very clear. First of all, I think that the so-called Homeland Security spokesperson is a joke. It's been made loudly and abundantly clear to the Trump administration. We're not going to be intimidated by their tactics. He's the most unpopular president in American history after his first 100 days. Give me a break. No one's intimidated by this dude. No one. And so there are clear lines that they just dare not cross.
So that was Keem Jeffries, obviously, who says a word every 5 minutes. They actually charged that Congresswoman because you have to see the video. She stampedes through the fence, and evidently Alexis McAdams was told behind the scenes when she gets beyond the fence, they tried to handcuff the mayor who wouldn't move. So as they go to do it, she jumped in between the ICE agent and the mayor, at which time, instead of creating an additional scene, they pushed everybody out, and then they cuffed the mayor in front of everyone. And they said, well, why are you making a scene and cuffing the mayor? Because this Congresswoman wouldn't get out of the way. And this woman thinks she can bulldoze. You have to see her. She's like a running back, not even a running back. Running backs try to avoid tackles. She's running through people, trying to get up the middle because she thinks there's children being harmed inside an ICE facility. What does she actually think about our law enforcement, to think that children need her help outside Newark? Or is she just somebody that got all amped up, think that this is going to help her career, thought that she could bully ICE agents because for some reason they're not popular with the American people, and thought she could just go do that? So her name is Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, and there's going to be a hearing today on the examining threats to ICE operations. This will be front and center. If you're in ICE, you're dangerous. You're pulling out criminals that are here illegally. My goodness, they got nothing to lose in many cases. So they're accusing her of McIver of assault, impeded and interfere with law enforcement in violation of Title 18 of the U.S. Code. Alina Habba makes the charge. Tom Homan, when you see that video with everything you got on your plate, what were your thoughts when you heard this was going down and you saw this video?
That she should be arrested. I mean, I said from day one, you and I have talked many times since day one of the administration, I said, you cannot support ICE. Shame on you, but, you have that right. You can protest. That's fine. You can stand by and support sanctuary cities, but you can't cross the line. You can't cross the line of impediment. You cannot cross the line of knowingly harboring, concealing illegal aliens. And you certainly can't cross the line but put hands on an ICE officer. So I wasn't bluffing. I meant it. They crossed the line. So I don't care what Hakeem Jeffries said. I put my red line out there first. So we crossed this red line, so game on. Bring it. We are enforcing the law without apology.
So with the mayor, according to our reporter, investigators told our reporter that McIver blocked police from putting handcuffs on the mayor while the group was inside the ICE facility. That is why the agents were forced to wait and handcuff the mayor when he was back outside of the gates that day. I mean, that's a tough decision for law enforcement to make. They could knock her out of the way and put cuffs on, but you have to worry about escalation, correct? And you have to also say, well, this is a U.S. Congresswoman.
Yeah, you always got to be, careful of the actions you take. But, the ICE officers handle themselves very professionally. I mean, and think about it. You're disrespecting, shoving around ICE agents. The very same week as Police Week that we're here in Washington, D.C., honoring those who made the ultimate sacrifice. I went to a Border Patrol Memorial Service. I went to ICE Memorial Service. I went to Blue Mass up on, National Law Enforcement, the wall of names of all those fallen. The same week, we're supposed to be honoring the sacrifice of law enforcement You got a congresswoman putting hands on somebody, trying to cause a disruption, putting politics over public safety. And if she simply would have went and followed the rules, she could have got a tour of that facility. Many people have. I mean, Rachel Campos went to that facility. And guess what? What did they find? One of the cleanest, finest, up-to-date facilities in the nation. Far better than anything New Jersey has, a state or local facility. So this should be ashamed of themselves. But Alina Hava, God bless you, she's doing the right thing. No one's above the law. Haven't we heard that for 4 years? Well, guess what? Either is members of Congress.
So how much harder is your job now that the Supreme Court said the Alien Enemies Act won't apply?
Look, it makes it hard, and they push it back down to the district to the local circuit court. We're hoping to win it because look, we're not making this up, Brian. We're using the laws on the books. We're using every tool in our toolbox. Alien Enemies Act was something that was written by Congress, enacted by Congress, and put in the statute. We're using it. And if anybody actually reads the Alien Enemies Act, we didn't violate any part of the act. People need to understand when they talk about due process, there's a less level of due process than the Alien Enemies Act is written in legislation on purpose. So we're talking about the quick expulsion of those who are enemies of this nation. Those who are designated terrorists are enemies of this nation. So we think we follow the law. But, once again, you got judges, second-guessing what we're doing. We're not making this up. We're using laws on the books. I think we'll eventually win it. But until then, we're not going to stop arresting these alien enemies, and we have to hold them in detention. That's what we'll do while we're waiting on what can we do about deportation. But we have to put them in Title 8 deportation. We'll have to do expedited removals. So we're going to do everything we can to keep arresting them and keep removing them, even though Alien Enemies Act removal flights are put on hold. We're going to use every tool in the toolbox to keep removing public safety threats every day from this country.
So, Tom, for example, if you get a guy from MS-13, you know he's from MS-13, he's sitting there in a jumpsuit, and you got to send him back to El Salvador. Now what is the process? Because you could still put him in, you could give him his hearing, can't you, if you wanted? I mean, you can't possibly get 8 million people hearings. But can you give him expedited removal, which could be on Zoom, they were telling me? It could be anywhere.
Yeah, you can do expedited removal. You can do voluntary departure. A lot of these MS-13 members in this country already have a final order. So we can remove them to a normal Title 8 ICE flight. So we're going to do everything we can. One thing I can assure you, they're not going to be walking the street.
Yep.
They'll be locked up waiting for one of these processes to work themselves out. Either it's the Title 8 immigration judge, whether it's expedited removal, whether it's a voluntary departure. We're going to take them off the streets, and we're going to keep getting them out of the country. But there's 3 or 4 different ways we can do it. It's just a slower process, but if that's what we got to do, that's what we're going to do.
How did Bill Clinton expedite 350,000 on expedited removal? What were his rules? Did Congress give him something to do that with?
No, and we're doing expedited removals right now. The problem is we don't have the border. Most expedited removals are border crossers, right? We have the most secure border in the history of this nation right now. We don't have those kind of numbers. That's why I keep hearing this. I keep getting asked the question, we're removing less people than Biden. No, we're not. ICE interior arrests and removals are much higher than Biden, but they counted border removals. When you got 8.5 million people crossing the border, being released from the country, you got a lot of people to remove, but our border secure, so we don't count border removals. We don't have border removals. So we're actually doing a hell of a lot more than the Biden administration did, but there's less expedited removals. That's usually that's 90% border cases, and we simply don't have those border cases because our border's secure.
What's your reaction to the Supreme Court saying that you can get rid of the people who got special dispensation from Haiti, from Venezuela, and I believe Nicaragua?
I think it's the right thing to do. Brian, I started doing this job in 1984. I've said for 1,000 times, temporary protective status has never been temporary in this country. It's a shame. Temporary protective status, that they won't remove you to a specific country because the conditions of that country are inhumane or they're in war or whatever, but the conditions have changed. And every administration has been weak. Well, let's just give it to them. They've been here a while. They got jobs, and let's just keep them here. Even the country conditions are improved. Let's just keep them. No, that's a form of amnesty. So I'm glad that they're following the law. Temporary means temporary. Those conditions in those countries aren't as bad as they used to be. They need to go home. They entered the country illegally. They were protected from being deported because the conditions of the country were bad. The conditions of those countries have improved. Time to go home.
So could Congress be helping you more? I mean, couldn't they pass some of these immigration laws to modernize them so you don't have to go back to 1794?
Yes. They could do three things in Congress that would solve 85% of the problem on the border. They can change the asylum rules. That your first interview for asylum, that threshold needs to be the same level as judicial review. That will stop the asylum fraud. Number two, the Trafficking and Victims Protection Act. Children from all over the world that enter this country illegally need to be treated just like children from Mexico. Once it's ascertained you're not a victim of trafficking, you can be immediately moved to your parents in the country you came from. Third, the Florida Settlement Agreement. When families come across, let us hold them in a family residential center long enough to see a judge. Over 90% will lose their case. We'll put them on an airplane, send them home, and the family stop coming. How do I know that? So we did that during the Obama administration, and it worked. Those three changes would solve 85% of the problem on the border. That way, the next president can't come in and undo everything we're doing right now through executive orders and destroy our border like Biden did when we took over from Trump 45. Congress can make these fixes permanent. I've been up on the Hill constantly. I hope they do it. But first of all, give me the money to continue doing what we're doing. We're doing great things. We need to finish this job. This administration may be the first administration in the history of this nation who actually have total operational control of our southern border. Let us finish this job and let ICE finish their job. They got to arrest 3 times more people every day than they're doing right now. We need money. We need beds. We need airplanes. We need agents.
Is that in the bill?
Contracts.
Is that in the big, beautiful bill?
Yes. If we get the money that's in the current bill right now, we can get this done. That's why I'm up on the Hill a lot. Pass this big, beautiful bill and watch what we do. Watch how secure this country is and watch how many criminal aliens and public safety threat and national security threats aliens ICE can remove if they have the resources to do it.
Well, if you get that money, the other thing would be, I understand they got to focus on this bill and you got to get everyone on page. I just watched Mike Lawler say he's not going to vote for it yet. So good luck with that, Mr. President. So he's a Republican from New York. So, Tom, afterwards, do you have the word of the speaker that they're going to do those 3 things or present those 3 things that you need done separately?
They're going to work on it. I'm not going to give up until we get it done. But look, it's people like Lawler. They got to remember, the American people voted overwhelmingly for President Trump on this issue: immigration, border security, removing public safety threats. He's been given a mandate, which means members of Congress have been given a mandate. I don't want to see what happened on Trump 45. The first 2 years on the Trump 45, we had the House and Senate, and they didn't do squat to support this president. He had to beg and take money for building the wall from other places. Haven't we learned our lesson? Let's secure the border. This should be a nonpartisan issue. A secure border saves lives. There's no downside unless fentanyl coming across kill America. There's no downside unless sex trafficking women and children. There's no downside unless public safety threats and national security threats entering this country. There's no downside unless people on the terrorist watch list crossing the border. And there's certainly no downside in bankrupting criminal cartels now designated terrorists. There's no downside in a secure border. Everybody, especially Republicans, should have no second guess of supporting this bill.
I hear you. Now, 2 things I have not heard much about. Fentanyl, I hear the numbers are going down, and I've not heard much about the northern border. What could you tell us?
Southern border's down operationally about 96%. Northern border's down about 88%. So we made great studies in the northern border. Problem is there's less resources, less technology up there. I've been up there. I've met with Canadian officials 3 times now. We're filling the gaps. But once again, this bill will give us more money to put more technology and more boots on the ground northern border. They're understaffed. We need money to hire more agents. This bill will help address the northern border. Yeah, it's down 88%. It needs to be down 100%. It needs to be down 96% like the southern border. We need money to do that. So this is another part of this bill why it's so important.
I know it's not really your jurisdiction, but the cartels make the fentanyl from the precursors from China. Have they felt the pressure?
Well, absolutely. Cartels, they're running scared right now. We're shutting down their business. They made record amounts of money in the last 4 years smuggling people, trafficking women and children, and moving drugs across the border. When we have the border down 96%, less people are coming, that means every agent's on the line doing his job, which means you're not sneaking them on fentanyl through like you used to. You're not sneaking women and children for sex trafficking and forced labor reasons. Cartels are hurting. We're hurting them where it hurts, in the pocketbook. But Mexico's got to step up and agree with Trump. We can take the cartels out permanently, but it's going to take the United States to do that. Mexico's failed for decades to do it. If you want the cartels to go away and be wiped off the face of the earth, it's going to take American might, American know-how. I hope Mexico agrees to that, because Mexico will be a much safer country.
Thanks to you, Tom. It'll be a much safer country. Tom Homan, back in a moment.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.